Well, good morning. This is Barry Odell with the Church of Christ at Mammoth Spring Facebook page. It's Wednesday morning, May 3rd, 2023. Hope everybody's doing all right today. We are doing our study of the kings of Judah, and today we are going to finish talking about Hezekiah. This will be the third day, and we could probably do more than that, but there's so much textual, biblical text information about Hezekiah, Kings, Chronicles, and Isaiah. So taking a little more time with him because of so much information. Lyle, Janie, Anna, good to see you guys and others who are on the stream. As always, if you have any questions or comments, you can use the comment section here on the church page or on the nearchurches.com Facebook page, and I'll acknowledge them when I see them. Now, I'll go ahead and tell you, I have shared 3 separate links in the comment section here. The first one is from BibleArchaeologyReport.com on Sennacherib, king of Assyria. And then I shared 2 links from Britannica, one on Hezekiah and one on Sennacherib. There is so much information out there, and I guess the best word maybe to use would be verification of the biblical text that is out there. Archaeology that, again, I don't like to say proves what the Bible says, but verifies what the Bible has been saying for a couple thousand years now. And it's good to be able to look at things, so I shared those links. Some very interesting reading, and it's all connected with what we're going to talk about today. So once the video's over, once the live stream is over, you can come back to the live stream and follow those links to just do a little bit of extra reading. There's nothing wrong with that. So let's get started this morning, talking about Hezekiah, and like I said, probably finishing up Hezekiah today. All right, so just quick review. He's the 13th king of 13th king of Judah. Reigns for 29 years. He's one of the good ones. We covered the fact that he, his father Ahaz had closed the temple doors, had set up idolatry all throughout Judah. Well, Hezekiah is a reformer. He opens the temple, repairs the temple, sets the Levitical priesthood in order, gets the worship set back up properly. All of that we've covered. We discussed yesterday the renewal of the Passover, getting that back in order, how they followed the law of Moses, Leviticus 23, Numbers chapter 9. They pleaded for God's mercy and compassion, and they received it. And so we've talked about all of that and how he was, in today's modern Christian world, in our society, when people talk about church folk and church practices, they like to use this word, they throw this word around, legalism. If you go strictly by the Bible, if you do things you read about in the Bible, you are either a legalist or a Pharisee. Sometimes you're both. Well, Hezekiah was the worst of them because he did everything according to the book of the law. And that's a good thing. Going by the book of the law is the only way to have God's approval. And if that makes you a legalist, so be it. If that's what people think a Pharisee is, then they don't really know what the Pharisees were. It just shows their ignorance. Good morning, Roy. Good to see you. So we talked about all that yesterday. Today I want to get into more, like I said, wrapping up Hezekiah. We've talked about all of his reforms, but a large part of the biblical text dealing with Hezekiah is his dealings with the assault from Assyria under the reign of Sennacherib. Okay, Assyria has already taken northern Israel. Sargon II was king of Assyria at that time. He dies in approximately 705 BC, and his son, by the name of Sennacherib, comes to the throne. And again, those links that I've shared in the comment section, they talk about all of this, so you can do that background digging for yourself if you so choose. But again, all that archaeology, all of that research has been done, verifies what the biblical text says. One of those articles, I forget which one it is, but one of those articles talks about the fact that in 2016, when ISIS was really causing a lot of trouble in the Middle East, they actually destroyed some of Sennacherib's palaces. They essentially, ISIS, the Islamic State, was about, to them, to their mindset, there was no history before Muhammad. And so just wipe it all out. And sadly, they've done some of that. But of course, everything has been already discovered before ISIS ever got there to destroy it. And there are actually images, Google images, you can see Sennacherib's palaces and all of this stuff. But anyway, let's get into what we're going to talk about today. So Assyria is on the march. They've got battles on various fronts. Obviously, they've already attacked northern Israel, took them captive in 721 BC. Now they're just moving a little bit farther south, and attacking Judah and Jerusalem. Sennacherib reigns from 705 to 681 BC, and that's pretty much covers all of Hezekiah's reign in Judah. But he attacks Judah in the biblical text tells us it's in the 14th year of Hezekiah's reign, which is about 701 BC. Isaiah chapter, and we're gonna look at some text, but we're gonna primarily deal with Isaiah's accounts of this, that's contained in Isaiah chapters 36 through 39. You can read it in 2 Kings 18 through 20, and in 2 Chronicles. I'll have it up here. Where is it? Well, I thought I had it up here. Anyway, 2 Chronicles chapters 29 to 32 cover Hezekiah. The first thing that he does, so let me actually get over here to Isaiah chapter 36. First thing that Sennacherib does en route to Jerusalem is he captures a variety of the what's called the fortified cities. And we read about Hezekiah building up these various cities around because Hezekiah knows that Assyria is on the march. Okay, it's not any secret. So he's preparing his people, his land, for the coming assault. Again, they've already attacked northern Israel. And so Hezekiah does everything he can to prepare. Here's Isaiah 36, beginning in verse 1. Came to pass in the 14th year of King Hezekiah. Again, that would be about 701 BC. That Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against all the fortified cities of Judah and took them. Now, again, one of those links that I shared talks about that. So we're reading this in the biblical text. But Sennacherib kept records. The Assyrian Annals records all of this, and he talks about and names these 46 cities that he took. And these are cities that we read about in the Bible. And the processes of fortification that Hezekiah went through when he became king, the biblical text tells us these things, but then archaeology verifies. Sennacherib wrote all these things down. I forget which, I think it's the article from, let me scroll up here real quick. I believe it's the article from BibleArchaeologyReport.com. That's the one that deals very specifically with the archaeological discoveries concerning Sennacherib and all of the Assyrian annals. Anyway, back to Isaiah 36, verse 2. Then the king of Assyria sent the Rabshakeh. The Rabshakeh is not a name. That would be like his chief of staff, okay? Somebody like that in the Assyrian government. With a great army from Lachish, well, he's trying to take that area too, to King Hezekiah at Jerusalem. And he stood by the aqueduct from the upper pool on the highway of the fuller's field. This is part of Hezekiah's tunnel. When Hezekiah knew that Assyria was coming, he shut up all the water supplies outside of the city, but he made a tunnel that went through Jerusalem that would collect water from the Gihon spring. And again, you can read about all of that. You don't even have to read the Bible for that stuff. You can find this information in secular history. You can find all these pictures of Hezekiah's tunnel, 1,750 feet long. It's basically like a snake curving through Jerusalem underground. So it's interesting to do a little bit of digging. So anyway, this is where they meet. They meet at this aqueduct. And Eliakim, he's the priest, the son of Hilkiah, who was over the household, Shebna the scribe, and Joah the son of Asaph, the recorder, came out to him. So you've got all these representatives from Judah going out to meet the chief of staff from Assyria. They're going to have this meeting. And basically, that's what I have next. He sends messengers. Basically, all of Isaiah chapter 36 records for us what the Rabshakeh, what Assyria's, hey, good morning, Brian, what Assyria's chief of staff has to tell these delegates from Hezekiah, but also the people around that can hear. So if you read Isaiah chapter 36, and basically Hezekiah, Judah offers money. This is not an uncommon practice. We'll give you gold and silver. Just back off. Well, Assyria is not going to back off. They're not interested in peace. They're interested in power. They're interested in land and dominance. And so the Rabshakeh speaks in the language of the people, in the Hebrew language, so everybody can understand what he says. So this is Isaiah 36, beginning in verse 14. Do not let Hezekiah deceive you, for he will not be able to deliver you. Nor let Hezekiah make you trust in the Lord, saying, the Lord will surely deliver us. This city will not be given into the hand of King Assyria. Don't listen to Hezekiah. Verse 16. For thus says the king of Assyria, make peace with me by a present and come out to me. Basically, you'll all live. But don't let Hezekiah make you think that you're going to survive this. Okay, that's Isaiah 36 and verse 18. All right, so that's the message. Well, that would be rather disturbing, and it's very it's very specific. I'm looking back here in 2 Kings chapter 18. This is the parallel account. Listen to this is part of the chief of staff's message to Hezekiah. This is 2 Kings 18 verse 27. Has my master sent me to your master and to you to speak these words, and not to the men who sit on the wall? In other words, this meeting is not just between a few officials, some from Assyria and some from Judah. This message coming from Assyria is to everybody in Judah, everybody who's on this wall. And then he says this, who will eat and drink their own waste with you? The threat is the only way you're going to be able to survive is if you get some buckets and collect your waste, and that's how you eat and drink. Well, what an enemy would do when you have a walled city like Jerusalem is they would shut everything down from the outside. Water supply, your food supplies, your crops are outside the city. We'll burn all that to the ground. We'll shut off your water. And, well, just imagine what you would have left to eat and drink. And so this message obviously would be very troubling to the ambassadors from Hezekiah. It would be troubling to those who could hear everything that the chief of staff from Assyria was saying. And so what you have then in Isaiah chapter 37 is Hezekiah hears this, and he goes to the prophet. That's the right place to go. Most of the kings that we've looked at so far have I guess you would say they have an adversarial relationship with the prophets. Most of the kings do not want to hear from God's prophets. Well, this is why Hezekiah is one of the good guys. He wants to hear from the prophet. He wants to know what he needs to do, and I guess exactly what God will do. And so he talks to Isaiah. Again, this is Isaiah chapter 37. Let's see, Isaiah 37 verse 5. So the servants of King Hezekiah came to Isaiah, and Isaiah said to them, thus you shall say to your master, thus says the Lord, do not be afraid of the words which you have heard, with which the servants of the king of Assyria have blasphemed me. Surely I will send a spirit upon him, upon the king of Assyria. And he shall hear a rumor and return to his own land, and I will cause him to fall by the sword in his own land. So that's Isaiah 37, 5, 6, and 7. Assyria is, again, it has armies scattered in a variety of regions. And the promise here is that essentially Sennacherib's going to get distracted with another battle. He's going to be at Jerusalem. He's going to siege the city, yes. But he's going to hear some other reports from different battlefronts. And he's going to essentially go to one of those, and that's when things are going to go south for him. And so Isaiah 37 talks about that to an extent. Isaiah 37, beginning in verse 8, you have another message coming back from Assyria to Hezekiah. It's back and forth, okay? Propaganda, things like this. But then, Isaiah 37:21, Isaiah the son of Amoz sent to Hezekiah, saying, thus says the Lord God of Israel, because you have prayed to me against Sennacherib king of Assyria, this is the word which the Lord has spoken concerning him. So the rest of Isaiah 37 is a record of what God would do even though Sennacherib has already besieged Jerusalem, here's what God's going to do in response to Hezekiah's prayer. Well, he sieges, he captures the city, he surrounds it. And again, all of these historical accounts, these links that I've shared for you in the comment section, they tell the story. And they tell it from the biblical perspective, but they also go into Assyrian annals, Assyrian history, and it records the exact same thing that we're reading here in the biblical text. So that's so interesting to notice. Anyway, you get down to the end of Isaiah 37, 36 through 38 talks about the demise of the Assyrian army. 185,000 soldiers are struck by an angel of the Lord in one night. And that's the end of that. And when you look at things like the Sennacherib Prism, I think another name for it is called the Taylor Prism, and that biblical archaeology report link that I shared talks about that, how Sennacherib is making all of these notes, and you have these inscriptions and these clay tablets that are recording everything that we are reading about in the Bible today. But then when it gets to the destruction of Jerusalem and it talks about Hezekiah and all of this, it just ends. And it talks about that Sennacherib, in one of the inscriptions, says that I had Hezekiah trapped like a bird in a cage. And then that's where it ends. And Sennacherib, his attention is diverted to another battlefront, and he goes home and he's actually murdered by his own sons. And that's what Isaiah 37, 36 through 38 records. He goes back to worship at the house of his own God, and his two sons kill him. Well, the Assyrian annals record that too. Pretty interesting to know all that stuff. And to me, it should be a faith-building exercise to do a little bit of digging in secular history and archaeological discoveries, and just see the confirmation or the verification of what the biblical text has been telling us for, well, at this point, essentially 2,700 years. Well, then Hezekiah gets sick. Okay, so Assyria is taken out of the way. That concern is over with, all right? You get to Isaiah chapter 38, after all of that's happened, Hezekiah gets sick, and he is told by Isaiah, this is Isaiah 38, set your house in order, verse 1, for you shall die and not live. Well, he turns his face to the wall, he prays, God extends his life for 15 years. And that all of this is recorded in Isaiah 38. Not only is the extension of Hezekiah's life by 15 years recorded there, but then in Isaiah 38, beginning in verse 9, you have the essentially the prayer of thanksgiving from Hezekiah to God. And so he recovers. Now, this has always been interesting to me. Okay, God in miraculous interventions can heal. You know, you read of the accounts in the Gospels, for instance, or even in the book of Acts, and the miracles that Jesus performed and the miracles that the apostles performed, and then even the miracles of the Old Testament, like with, I've mentioned these guys several times, but Elijah and Elisha. The miracles that were performed could be just like Jesus would touch someone and heal them, or Jesus would speak the word and heal them. But then you have other miracles like, okay, so here's a for instance, in 2 Kings chapter 5, what's his name? Naaman, the king of Syria, or the commander of the Syrian armies. He's a leper. He can be healed by Elijah, but he's told to go and wash in the pool of Siloam. Pool of Siloam, that's John chapter 5. Naaman was told to go dip in the Jordan River 7 times. I'll get it straight here in a minute. Go dip in the Jordan River 7 times. Well, God could have just healed him. But that was a test of his faith. Well, here, Hezekiah is sick, all right? And I acknowledge, and those of you listening would acknowledge that, well, God could have just healed him. There's no question about that. But when you get to the end of Isaiah chapter 38, notice this, verse 21. Now Isaiah had said, let them take a lump of figs and apply it as a poultice on the boil, and he shall recover. And Hezekiah had said, what is the sign that I will go up to the house of the Lord? How is all this going to come to pass? Well, that sign is recorded for you in the Kings and Chronicles account, the the sundial of Ahaz would go back 10 degrees. That's not recorded here in Isaiah, but it is in Kings and Chronicles. But anyway, he's told to do something in order to be healed. But God, he didn't have to function that way if he chose not to. To me, this is one of those instances where it's like it's a test of, will you do what I'm saying do? Well, he did, and he recovered. Anyway, that's Isaiah chapter 38. Then you get to Isaiah chapter 39, and, well, the king of Babylon, which is separate from Assyria, hears that Hezekiah has been sick and recovers. So he sends, what's the word? Some representatives to Hezekiah, sends him gifts and wants to check on him. And this is a mistake that Hezekiah makes. And, from a human perspective, what he does here makes sense. You're a king, okay? You're a president, let's say. You have a visit from a foreign king, foreign president, or whatever. They send messengers over and gifts, and, well, you want to show them your stuff. You want to show them what you've got, and that's what Isaiah 39 records, what Hezekiah does. He was pleased with them, Isaiah 39:2, and showed them the house of his treasures, the silver, the gold, spices, precious ointments, all his armory. And Isaiah 39 verse 2 ends by saying, there was nothing in his house or in all his dominion that Hezekiah did not show them. Now, that's not very smart politically. I mean, they've just been under assault by Assyria. Babylon's under assault they're all enemies. Why in the world would you show your enemy everything you've got? From your wealth to your military capabilities, everything. Isaiah comes to him, and the question is, what have they seen in your house? And Hezekiah's like, well, there's nothing they haven't seen. Well, that's not good. Again, politically, militarily, spiritually, and I think that's perhaps a main point. Isaiah 39:4, what have they seen in your house? Hezekiah said, they have seen all that is in my house. There is nothing among my treasures that I have not shown them. Okay. Hear the word of the Lord of hosts. Behold, the days are coming when all that is in your house and what your fathers have accumulated until this day shall be, listen to this, shall be carried to Babylon. Well, that's who he showed it to. Nothing shall be left, and they shall take away some of your sons. Listen to this. They shall take away some of your sons who descend from you, whom you will beget, and they shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. Have you ever read Daniel chapter 1 with Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah? We know them probably better as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. We know them better by their Babylonian names. They're eunuchs in the kingdom of Babylon. And that's about, from this period of time, about 100 years later, 586 BC, when King Nebuchadnezzar comes in and takes them. What happens there with Babylon and those assaults of Babylon on Jerusalem are prophesied of right here 100 years prior to their happening. So, to me, a study of Hezekiah, again, along with all of the archaeological evidence that verifies everything we've said, a study of Hezekiah and Sennacherib and Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar is one of the best studies you can do to to strengthen your faith in the inspiration of the biblical text. Okay, these aren't just stories. These aren't just fables and parables and analogies, allegories, things like this. These are historical events. These were historical people. The Bible tells us of these things, and then archaeology just verifies what the Bible's been saying for 2,000 years. It's worth your time to do a little bit of digging outside of the biblical text to see all these things verified. So that's Hezekiah. When you get back to, let me turn back here real quick to the 2 Chronicles account. 2 Chronicles 32. 2 Chronicles 32 records everything we just discussed, the visit from Babylon and how it was shown. And then 2 Chronicles 32:32, the rest of the acts of Hezekiah, his goodness. Indeed, they are written in the vision of Isaiah. Well, that's what we were just reading. The son of Amoz. And in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel, we've looked at that too, 2 Kings 18 through 20. So Hezekiah rested with his fathers, and they buried him in the upper tombs of the sons of David. And all Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem honored him at his death. You remember we looked at one king a while back that said, to no one's, how did it say it? To no one's sadness he departed. They didn't even bury him. Not so with Hezekiah, because he was a good one. And then we have this sentence, and this is where we'll pick up on Monday. No, we won't pick up on Monday. I've got to be out of town on Monday. I just remembered that. So no live stream Monday. This is where we'll pick up on Tuesday. Then Manasseh his son reigned in his place. Different story with Manasseh. All right, guys, that's it for today. I appreciate you being on here. And again, I want to encourage you, after the stream's over, click on these links that I've shared for you, do a little bit of research, and compare it with what you read in the Bible. Very helpful stuff. It's Wednesday. We'll be live here tonight, 7 p.m. Central Time, studying Psalms 90 through 92. And so if you're sick, can't get out, or you are in a place where there is no Wednesday night service, feel free to watch our live stream and study with us from the book of Psalms. All right, guys, have a good day, and hope to see you back here on Tuesday, not Monday.